Welcome back. We'll end today with our final review for the week about the President's tour of the United States. And we're joined now by Mr. Paul Adams, who is of the Africa Research Institute in UK. Morning, and thank you for joining us today, Mr. Adams. Let's get your impression, because yes, indeed, the President did go to the US with two major issues about security and the economy. But then there are several interpretations that has been given to the outcome of that visit. But from your impression, what do you think?
Well, I think it was a success. I think actually the fact that he got such a good reception was a success. I understand that originally they wanted President Obama to stop off in Nigeria on his Africa visit on his way to Kenya. And then it was decided that it would be more benefit to going to for the president to go to the US, and certainly I can see the argument. He got 3 days of meetings. He saw people that he certainly wouldn't have seen if he just had President Obama stopping off in Nigeria. I gather he had a meeting with the US Attorney General. You mentioned the economy. I'm not sure what he would have got or could have expected to get from the American government at this stage on the economy. I think what he was particularly interested in, as well as security, was his policy of dealing with corruption, and I think that's why the meeting with the U.S. Attorney General is important, because as you know, and as he stated, it's a priority with him, and he wants to trace illicit financial flows, in other words, money that's been taken out of the country illegally, and America really controls the international financial system, so securing their support is very important. On the security side, again, I don't know if he's got anything tangible, but I think it was a first step. The reputation of the Nigerian government in general and the security forces in particular was very low, was rock bottom really under the previous president. So it's a matter of re-establishing confidence.
Well, Paul, with respect to security, because I mean, many expected that the president was going to come back with some concrete arrangements or agreements about specifically supply of arms. But now there's this conversation about the U.S. law, which says that they cannot supply arms to countries that have got questions about human rights record. And many thought that, look, that doesn't help us in any way. Do you think that perhaps we came off wrong on that one, not benefiting anything about supply and sale of arms?
No, I think it's a matter of taking it step by step. As you mentioned, there have been criticisms of the human rights record of the Nigerian army and security forces. And again, he has changed the top brass in the armed forces, which indicates a willingness to deal with all of the faults of the previous administration. But the Americans aren't going that overnight. They want to see evidence of improved performance, and I know I've read certainly that that Buhari took this very seriously. The question of the deaths, unexplained deaths of civilians, and the general behaviour of the army in the northeast. So they've got to start by convincing the Americans that things are changing. On the question of, I actually think that cooperation can come in a number of forms. I don't think it's just a question of military hardware. I think the Nigerian government's probably got quite a lot of that already, and I think there are other sources besides the US in any case if they want more. I think they need training. I think the army needs better discipline. I think that the critical thing is intelligence gathering, which is how you deal with a small insurgent force, or effectively a a terrorist organization, which is the way that Boko Haram is operating in the northeast now. And I don't see how, for example, I know there was a disagreement earlier this year about Apache helicopters, very high-tech, powerful aircraft that the Americans make, and which the Nigerian government allegedly wanted, and they couldn't get them. But I don't see how much use an Apache helicopter is against, should we say, children who are blowing themselves up in bus stations, that kind of terrorism. I don't think that's the way to combat it.
Okay, we have looked at what Nigeria stands to gain in terms of, what the president has come home with. But then one would also ask, what do you think? Does this affect the impression or image of Nigeria outside her shores?
Yes, I do. I mean, it was a proper state visit. There's a lot of prestige attached to that. A lot of African presidents want to get invited to Washington and stay in a guest house in the White House. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of prestige.
Aside the prestige, is there anything else that changes in terms of, how, for instance, it affects relations of Nigerians living in diaspora and their general image?
It might help for Nigerians living in the US, yes. The fact that their president's been invited to Washington and he's had 3 days of meetings with the government. There'll have been news coverage, and that's good for Nigeria's image in the US.
Just a quick one. How quickly do you think the promises made, the assurances that have been given, how quickly do you think the US will begin work on meeting them?
Which assurances?
In terms of helping in repatriation of some of the stolen funds that have been taken out of the country.
Well, I don't know, but I think that can start almost immediately. I don't think any new agreements have to be, any new laws have to be passed, or any more regulations put in place. I mean, this is the kind of thing that the Americans do all the time. I mean, if you look, and it's very effective. If you look, for example, at the way they closed down Iran's financial networks as part of their sanctions regime, the effect was almost immediate, and also the ability, their investigation powers as well. Don't forget, it was the United States that got the evidence that led to the arrest of FIFA officials, not any of the European countries.
All right, Mr. Paul Adams, thank you very much indeed for talking to us today.
Okay, bye.
All right, so that's Mr. Paul Adams. He's a consultant with Africa Research Institute in the UK. Well, that's the show today. We thank you all for watching, and for your comments as well. That is, we read some of them. You did too. And we'll be back next week. I'm Chamberlain also.
Well, thank you. I'm Maokwe Ogun.
And I'm Nel Tegwe. Thank you very much.
Have a lovely weekend.